Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenniger, and welcome to the Eddy Network podcast. My guest today is Lukas Michel, and he is an innovative business thinker and writer. I met him 6 years ago over in Vienna at the Peter Drucker Global Forum. And when I showed him my circle of impact model, he got it right away. And that to me said everything I needed to know about him, and everything I've found out about him since has elevated my impression of him and my gratitude to him for the work he's done. So, Lukas, I'm really glad to be with you today, and tell us where you live and what it is that you are doing in your work.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, for reconnecting and for meeting again. Last time we met not close by here. It's a 2-hour flight from where I'm at to Vienna. That's where we met last time. So I live in the Swiss Alps near St. Moritz. That's where I have my offices, and that's where I essentially spend most of my time. What do I do? That's a good question. First of all, I'm in pension, which is a nice thing to be in. I very much enjoy that for the past 3 years. But I may say, as it most likely happened to most of those that get into pension, I'm more busy than ever before. So so pension is an interesting part of my life, and I do more of what I like to do here. So summertime is golfing here. I have 2 minutes away, 2 golf courses here, and I'm engaged with seniors golf and all of that in Switzerland here. So that keeps being an important part of what I do, not just for the golf itself, but maybe we get into that later on. It has to do with our methodology of what I'm writing about, what I'm teaching, what we are working with businesses with here. So that's my summer essentially here. Wintertime is writing, is working with clients, and over lunchtime it's a bit of skiing here. So my skiing is right out the building here, and you might actually see it snowing outside. So we are getting quite some snow.
Oh, good.
For the first time this year, which is very nice here. So we're waiting for that. Yeah. So. What do I do? I run a business. It's called Management Insights. And essentially, it's a digital business. I'm the only one in my office. Under my table is a big server where we have all the data and all the algorithms for what we call the executive survey. This is a diagnostic tool that we are using for organizations to actually help them find out who they are, what they're doing well, what they're not doing well at all. And the tool that we're actually selling is what we call an organization twin. Okay, maybe I have to quickly explain what an organization twin is. Yeah. So it's like any twin. Here is yourself, and here is the twin. Okay. So imagine this being your organization. Okay. Now, organizations, you cannot look at them. I mean, there's no thing here that enables you to look at your own organization. So it's an intangible good. Okay. Mm-hmm. With culture in it, with leadership in it, with management in it, with structure in it, with all of these things that you cannot look at. Yeah. Okay. We have diagrams for structure. I mean, that's the most common thing we know of an organization, these hierarchical things here. So that's your real thing here. And what we are doing is we are creating a twin of your real thing. And the twin is what we are building. So that twin essentially includes management, leadership, culture, structure, purpose, all of these things you need in order to manage an organization, and we make it visible. Okay, we make it visible with diagrams, with models, and fill it with your own data.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one thing is it allows you to have a look at culture in quite some detail. Okay. Yes, we use diagrams and all of that stuff with it here. So essentially, what you're getting here is the copy of your organization. And the benefit of it is quite simple here. You can start thinking about the future of your organization with a copy. You can start scenario planning. You can start understanding why it works the way it works, okay, without actually touching your real thing here. So you can plan entire transformations with the twin, with the organization twin. You can go through all the rigor of the thinking and all of that. You can do it with your entire organization without changing one thing here, okay? Once you have set, say, now I think we know what you're doing here. Let's get started in a reasonable way. Then this thing helps you in steps to actually get and turn it into reality here. So that's what I'm doing here. That's what I'm writing about. That's what we're offering to businesses. And that's all under my desk, essentially here. And my network, we have 40.
Before you go there, I want to ask you a question about this. What you just described, the twins. That is, to me, that's very provocative. Because what I see is that people cannot see the first twin. They don't see that. They're totally encompassed by it. They're totally immersed in that. They operate in it, but they can't see it. They don't even know it exists. I think you said that. They don't. And the problem there is, and this is what I think you're addressing. And I can't tell you how much I love this. The problem I see is that the structure of their organization is the main obstacle to their growth and their effectiveness, their impact, because they cannot see it. So you're offering a way to see this and to adjust it so that it can be different. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right about it, but the word structure is one that I'm actually not using through my entire thing here. We do it with everything but structure, which is quite interesting here. So just imagine a building, okay?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the image I'm using here to display an organization. It has different floors, and different things happen in different rooms, okay? So you have the shop floor, where people actually do real work,
right?
Where value creation is actually happening. You have a manager room where things are being controlled, managed, supervised, whatever you want to call it. You have a team room where teams are being formed, where ways are being found in order to get work done. You have, of course, the executive team. You have a room, we call it the operations room, okay? That is essentially the CEO's room in order to manage the future of the organization. So, and we have the boardroom. This is kind of like they live in where it's hot on top, under the roof. So you can actually walk through the entire building into rooms, and you get into a different environment, and we help you to understand that environment. So once you walk through all the rooms, essentially you have almost everything together in order to understand the organization. So to simplify that, you could call a structure is the escalators, to get up and down in your organizations and the doors and whatever here. So we are not an image of a structure. It's actually everything else, because a structure is almost something that you can see. And I worry about those things that you can't see. So,
well, I'm with you, totally with you. So when I use the word structure, I use it in two ways. One is organizational structure, which is your program or your products, the operations, the finances, and the governance.
Okay.
Every organization has those four things.
Yeah.
And what I have found that when you're the CEO, you're really good at one of those, but not all four. And the smart CEO staffs or hires to cover all four of those at a high level of excellence. The other type of structure is the social structure, which also is the culture of the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I have found there is that culture is a product of the relationships of the people within the company. It's not necessarily what is imposed on it from above. It really is how these people begin to work together and the values that define them as a company.
If looking at that broadly, then that's kind of like a part of it. So but the value of that thing here, of that copy, comes to play when, first of all, you build that construct together with your team. Be it your work team, be it your whatever team it is, your board team, your executive team, it doesn't matter here, but it's looking at that together, and through the conversation, through the sensing, through the understanding of what things are, you actually build your own reality. And the service we are providing is we help them actually find their own reality. Okay. And by finding their own reality, they start actually themselves working themselves towards, the real thing here. So that's the service that we are providing.
What do you see as the obstacle for the copy to have its effect upon the first twin? What are the obstacles that you see? I would call those patterns of behavior, but they're obstacles to being successful in taking the analysis that you provide and have a positive effect upon the company.
Yeah, let me start one step earlier.
Okay.
So it's the issues companies face before they actually even get into things here, or before they actually get into talking to us. And I mean, that the main thing that organizations are looking for is performance, be it growth, financial, whatever this is. It doesn't matter, but it's you can summarize it in the performance thing here, and then it's the next thing. You actually look, well, why don't we perform the way we are performing here? And in my world, there's kind of two sides that you can look at. And yes, they have a lot of overlap here, but it's helpful to distinguish them. One is and there are suppliers for that. There are people fixers. Okay, I name it that way because most of the coaches, most of the trainers, actually almost 75% of the helpers business for organizations and managers are in that area here. And it's only maybe 25% that are in the area of the organization itself here. Okay,
interesting.
Because people always look for individuals that are in fault of performance, but very hardly to organizations themselves. So the defaults always get to people, be it on top or be it at the bottom. It doesn't really matter too much here. And the argument that I'm bringing to the table is that let's have a look at 25% here, because those are the ones that really have impact on what is happening in the organization. And that's a systems piece. Okay. Yeah. The way an organization is designed by systems, by the way you pay people, the way you manage goals, the way you reward, the way you structure yourself, the way you manage, the way you give freedom, where accountability is. So all of these questions here, the way that is designed or not designed in that sense here determines much of the performance in an organization, actually much more than if you try to find the fault with individuals. And most of the time, the fault is found with managers, okay? it's the CEO's fault, and that's why we need to replace the CEO. Okay, well, if the CEO hasn't had enough time in order to shape that system thing here in an organization, the way we plan, the way we manage risks, the way we look forward here, all of these things. If that hasn't been shaped properly, then you cannot expect a culture to be the way it has been designed. Then it's there by default here, and default is not the good thing in order to manage things at a specific time of its development here. So what I'm saying is what I'm doing, what we are doing is very much on the system side, on the organizational capability side, a bit on the leadership side, but not all that much here. And that system side includes all rules, routines, the tools you use for managing the organization. Yes, leadership comes into it as a part of it, and culture is kind of like the result of it here. So that's my almost famous performance triangle now explained with systems, leadership, and culture. So that's kind of the thing we play with people in the center here. So it's the machinery that enables the people in the center to actually perform well. So it's taking care of let's say of the work environment, creating a work environment that really helps people to perform at the peak. And I'm not worrying too much about the people themselves, even though that's most likely what is happening afterwards. Okay, so that's what we are looking at. Okay, now.
So
let me answer your question. Sorry,
okay,
I haven't answered the questions yet because I have given you a detour here. So given all of that, the big hurdle for organizations to get into is to have the sensitivity for exactly those questions. To be sensible that yes, an organization needs to be cultivated, it needs to be nurtured, it needs to be developed, it needs to be organized, and on all of that stuff here. And most leaders that I get to know, they assume that it's there. Someone takes care of it, So it's an assumption that in my mind is completely false here, because it's the CEO with his team, her team, in order that needs to shape that, and it's not the other way around here. So that's kind of the most difficult thing to break. So it's getting to leaders that have the sensitivity for those questions here. And I mean, it's leaders that know gardening, to use that word. It's leaders that know developing. It's not the leaders that push for performance. It doesn't work there. because there's nothing they can do for them here.
What you have described just in the last 2 minutes is precisely what I felt like I faced every day for 20 years as a consultant, of walking in to a place, having a little bit of conversation, seeing things that were, well, we could use the term broken, or not working well, non-functioning, or conflict, seeing these things, and they're very evident. And the folks in the organization itself couldn't see it. It's fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating thing.
It's I mean, I'm being very open here. We learned the very hard way. Okay, I mean, for the last 10, 12, 13 years, we have been promoting our executive survey. Okay. So here, the consultant comes, okay, and says, I want to do good for this company here. We can do a survey. Okay. The survey will tell you exactly where you are, what you do, and all of that sort of stuff here. Oh, this is no good at all here, because if you're a CEO, you don't want to have that clarity. You don't want to have that transparency. You don't really want to know too clearly and so on here. So that was the biggest barrier of actually getting in. That's why I have decided some years ago to switch it around completely here, and essentially offer this twin thing. Okay, so our product is the twin, and helping organizations with that twin in order to get closer to reality here. And yes, we have to do an executive survey. We can't get around it because that's the data I need in order to fill the twin here. Okay, but the twin is also filled with the data from all of those companies that have done it in the past. So we have a stack of 400 companies in there by now. We can compare industries, we can compare type of organizations, we can compare just about anything to anything, and essentially the twin allows us to exactly do that here. So you get an insight into organizations which is very, very deep. If you want to have it deep, you can do it shallow. That's possible too, but it makes you think, and
So,
that, yeah.
So you're getting a picture of management and leadership as it exists today, and that picture is telling you, I suspect, the source of some of the problems that come, in particular, in how leaders and managers are developed and how they enter into a process of development where they end up arriving at the point where they're the CEO or the COO or the CIO or they're the head of HR, whatever it is their role is. But there's a process that they've gone through that has led them there. Do you have any insight about that kind of says, oh, this is why we have the situation that we have today?
This is understanding legacy. Okay.
Yes, totally.
And this is actually one of the most important points in my mind today to understanding how you can actually progress to the future here. So this actually leads me into the latest book. We call it the Transition of Organizations.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
Transition doesn't quite so well.
Yeah.
So Transition of Organizations does the following. Maybe I can quickly explain why we got there here. So over the last 20 years, we have worked with many companies. Okay, they have all done this executive survey, and just about 3 years ago, we took all the data and said, look, we have companies that are at different stages of their development, of their growth cycle here. Okay, and then it came quite easy. I said, well, there is this famous Greiner growth life cycle model here. Okay, so generic organizations develop according to a cycle of growth, which is almost standardized. They almost all do that. So it starts with entrepreneurial type organization, then functional organization, then it gets into decentral organizations, into segment organizations, into network type organizations. These organizations, they grow first by creativity. When the entrepreneur comes, then it's a growth by direction. When more control is needed in order to manage the organization, they grow by delegation. When one or a team cannot manage everything anymore, so you need to delegate. It's growth by coordination. So you can imagine these stages here. So what we have done is we have clustered all of our cohort of organizations in our data set along these 5 growth cycles. Okay. So, and this means we get a picture of what organizations look like at every stage of that growth cycle. Okay. And this means that if you are in the 3rd cycle, which is growth by delegation, for example, you're there. Okay. We know why you got there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We know how you can get to the next cycle. Okay, because we know from the experience of those organizations what they have done in the past. We know those that have been successful and those that haven't been successful at the transition. So we are using legacy in order to understand what's going on in the future, but we are also using experience of others that have gone through that legacy already here. Okay, it works, except if you're at the first stage, because then you don't have a legacy, because that's the birth of an organization here. So, but with all the others, yes, we are using the story of how they got there. And then we have the story of what happens to organization when they actually evolve. And what we have found is that there is four very dominant transitions. Okay, but maybe we get to that later on here, because you asked about the legacy here. So yes, we are using legacy. We are using very structured legacy because we have sorted it all out according to about 50 variables we look at. So we can be quite detailed, and we find that most of the issues in organizations, they are related to the growth cycle. They're not people related. It's not because you have wrong managers. It's not because you have faulty decisions, because you have leaders that don't know what you're doing, whatever, or because your culture is crooked or whatever. No, it's because of what you did in the past. That's where you are, and most of the variables here, they actually come from the development of the past, and not from instant issues that arise with a leader or with whatever in an organization here. So it's worthwhile to go through the thinking in order to understand how you can successfully, evolve through the next growth phase.
So let me ask this question. Let me put this into the context of a project I did in 2000. I was a part of a team that went into work with a hosiery mill. They made men's socks.
Okay.
The company has been started in 1940. It was a family business. The family was still running the business. The founder was still coming to work every day, even though his son had become the president.
Yep.
And they had their methodology, that's the right word, manufacturing methodology was 17 stages, and they hired for each stage, and that person only worked at that stage where they were creating inventory, 17 sets of inventory. And we came in because they were losing business, they were losing money, and they could not, they were so captured by the original methodology that their legacy, they could not move beyond that. And so they could not transition to the next stage. And we helped them transition the process of making socks, but we could not transition their ability, their mindset about who they were. So what they should have done was not stop making socks, but become an IT company where they manage the inventory of their customers' sock inventory. But they could not make that transition, that intellectual transition to become an IT company, because it was so far out of their legacy mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. And while you were explaining the story here, I was already positioning it, in my
I'm sure
growth model here, and I would argue it's kind of there between what we call growth by creativity, after the entrepreneurial phase where the company actually grew by a dominant leader, by the founder, that actually dominates everything in the organization, that determines how things are being done, and suddenly reach a size where the dominant leader cannot be there every day. It's just too big. So they actually need to start organizing according to functions. So what you explained with these steps here, this is just another word of using its different functions of how the process actually gets done here. And the question is, is how would you actually successfully transform from being an entrepreneurially driven organization to an actually function-driven organization. And the recipe there that we found out is what we call a people-first mindset. A people-first mindset is just imagine you have a dominant leader, okay? He decides everything that's being done within the organization. So that the first thing that you need to do in order to be able to move on is to delegate that capacity of leadership. If you have one leader in a company, you can't do it if it gets bigger. You need more of them, okay? And that's what we call being a people-first mindset, okay? If people understand that they can get things done without having to go and ask every time to actually move into the right direction, then you have built the mass in order to move to the next stage and build on growth again here. So that's kind of like the people-first mindset recipe that we are offering in the book from the first to the second stage here.
So let me give you another example. And this, I worked with a company that had a CEO, executive team that had been high control. No one got to make any decisions. All the decisions were made above. But prior to them, they were a people-first company. And this executive team had done some unethical things with money. And so they were removed. It wasn't illegal, it was just unethical. They were removed. A new guy came in, and he was a people first guy. And so his first thing he did was not tell anybody what he wanted to do, but he went around and was meeting people. He was taking breakfast to people who were working out from the plant, and then I came in to help them write a value statement. And when my first day, I said, how long ago do we have to go back to when this was a happy company? And the president of the union said 20 years, which is when this now former executive team came into power. He says, and it was because we, as he quote, we were a family. This new guy came in, and he did exactly what you're talking about. He turned into people first. He developed leadership capacity at the managerial level, and they developed the leadership capacity all the way down to the lowest level of the company. Within 2 years, they were recognized by Forbes as one of the 100 most trustworthy companies in the nation. So I see exactly. Here's my question: how do you go from being a people company to be a high control company, and then go to become a people company? Is that just a hiccup in that process?
No, that's normally if these transitions aren't being done properly here, and the reality is that, but that's our reality we observe, is that 50 to 70% of the organizations don't transition properly, but don't transition at all here. They actually don't know in what kind of a stage they are at within the development cycle of an organization here. So some companies put some stuff in place which kind of doesn't make sense or is simply wrong. And what we're able to do with the book here, with that cycle, is to guide people on those things that we know that are helpful in order to make that transition successful. So, for example, the example that you brought up is stage 2 to 3. That's what we call people-centric management. And that's the book. So that's kind of like a book I wrote 4 or 5 years ago here, and explains how you actually do that transition. And it just happened by luck that you actually found out that these are the clues that you need in order to move an organization that has become far too control-oriented, that has killed all creativity and so on, to get actually back into the cycle of growth as it likely had in the past here. An interesting thing, these cycles, that they have different times. sometimes a company goes through it in 3 years, sometimes in 10 years. It depends very much. It's very individual. That's why when you're saying, well, maybe we have to go 20 years back, maybe that's the time they actually followed the cycle number 2, which is growth by direction, which increased the autonomy, which got them into crisis of autonomy, which now they need to solve. And that's why we came with this, in that case, with people-centric management approach to successfully move into the next stage here. So,
then a high autonomy structure has a rationale which is not problematic. It's just a stage of the transition that the company is going to have to go through. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a specific stage here. So it's a stage where a company grows by direction. By direction, it means they build departments. There's marketing, there's production, there is sales, there is R&D, there is whatever here. And what happens is that if these units get very strong, then essentially the whole thing finds itself in a crisis of autonomy because it's not one thing anymore. It's those separate things that actually operate here. This is, when suddenly, production becomes too dominant, produces what they want to produce and not what the clients want, okay? It's when a sales organization goes out there and sells a dream that production cannot produce. That's when you see samples of what we call the crisis of autonomy here, okay? And yes, we like delegation, we like decentralization, all of these things, but someone needs to pull these things together somehow, So the next stage is one where things need to be pulled together again in a different way here, okay? In order to not get into this crisis of autonomy here.
I really like this.
So the argument is if you are in a crisis of autonomy, then you need to implant what we call a managerial approach, which we call people-centric management, that every managers in the organization follows, such that they start collaborating, such that they start following the same purpose, such that they start building relationships and all of these things that helps you to make an organization more resilient here. So that's kind of like transitioning from a growth by direction type phase company to what we call growth by delegation here. Delegation is a good thing, but you need to organize it in a proper way. So anyway, these are stories of different phases here. You see, and whatever your story you bring to me, I can position it somewhere in there, and I can actually bring you the past story, and I can explain you, what organizations do going forward here, and that's kind of what we were describing in the book. And as you can imagine, we're not just writing the book; we have turned it right into our executive survey tool and the twin. So one section of the twin is looking at the past and learning from others what's coming in the future here. So that's kind of like a chapter or a shelf or a room that you can book in your twin to think through the future or through where you actually are as an organization. And I mean to say that this is tremendous insights that leaders are getting by going through the thinking, by observing what is, by learning what others do, and we are bringing that together in a very compact way here. But again, it requires the sensitivity of a leader to even get into that conversation here, and that's not everywhere the case.
So you have written a number of books, and I like what I've read for your books. And so tell us who are watching this, where do we start in reading your work so that we gain an understanding of this, and it could lead us, create our twin to help us actually see where we are, because I think this has as much to do with who we are as individual leaders as it does with the structure of the organizations that we're working in.
Let me answer that in a different way. Okay. The fastest way to get into that is not to read books, is to use our free executive survey tool.
Okay.
On our website. We have on the website, we have a free tool that you can access. It's a fully blown thing here, but with a limited scope. Let me put it that way. Okay. And that is something that a leader can use, an employee can use, an expert can use, whatever. And it's always, I put myself as a member of the organization into the organization, which means through the executive survey, I'm building my organization's twin. Okay. It's just with one data set. I mean, it's not the most precise thing that you have already, but it's my organization.
It's a starting point.
So it's a starting point. And then with that twin, we offer a 1-hour conversation with the individual such that they can start making sense of the twin, and then they can go on their own here and essentially get into the books. Okay. The books essentially, they add different aspects, details to it. So for example, what I just showed you, the transition of organizations, that's the latest book here. That's the first time where we offer a time perspective to managerial issues here. So we look at how organizations develop. Okay. If someone is interested in personal performance, so how can I myself within my organization be better at performing here? Then I recommend a book that's called Agile by Choice. Okay. Agile by Choice is an individual leadership book with lots of exercises in it. And the executive twin, or the organization twin, in that sense, with the executive survey, gives you all the data you need in order to work yourself through that thing here. Okay. So you get the report that accompanies that book that helps you to actually read through the book, not with some kind of data, it's with your own data. Okay. So that's what we call the individual thing here. That's what we're using for workshops with executives, with whoever it is, with teams, if they want to understand how they can perform better at what they are doing here. Okay. And that is actually, it's kind of a side thing here, but I'm taking that on the golf course. Okay. To close that loop. We are doing exercises on the golf course or on skiing that help you to be better at that.
I love that.
We call that the inner game of golf, the inner game of skiing, the inner game of work. And that's not invented by me. It's invented by Timothy Galway, who has written the famous books about inner game of tennis, for example, or so. So I'm certified in teaching that, in training that, and it's the absolute core of what we are doing here. Okay, so the core of a organization twin is what we call the inner game experience, because that enables organizations to learn. So that's really I would call it, if someone really wants to get into that, you cannot do it without really learning about your own performance. And I mean, the 4 elements are awareness. Is how do you build awareness? Okay. If you're playing golf and you have no sense of where your golf ball is, or if you don't feel your clubs in golf, then essentially it won't never work here. So creating that sense, that sensing, creating that awareness is the first thing in order to be able to perform.
Mhm.
Second thing is trust. Okay. If you can't build trust in what you're doing, in your capability, you will never get there. So a major part of our work is to actually help people build trust, be it on the golf course, be it on skiing, be it at work. Okay. Third thing is choice. Okay. I always ask people that come with us, do you want to be a part of your team? It's your choice to be here or not to be here. You want to be here. Anybody that does not want to be here makes the choice to not to be here, and then you're out. I don't want anybody on the golf course with me that does not want to be there. So it's your own choice. If you're not making a choice of doing something, of learning, of performing, you'll never get there. So awareness, choice, trust. This is kind of like the Timothy Galway's circle. Then the last one is focus of attention. Focus of attention is the tool in order to really perform and learn. Okay, if you can focus your attention on the one thing that matters most to you, then we can guarantee that you're actually performing at the peak. If you can't concentrate, if you cannot focus on that one thing here, very hard. So most of what we do is we give people exercises where they help to learn to focus on specific things here. In golf, if I come back to that, if you focus on your result, okay, it's I'm determined to make the next hole in 3 strokes, okay, then I can be 100% sure that you won't make it because you have focused on your expectation on your goals. Okay. If you're focusing on, I have done it before, I know exactly, how my swing works, and I focus on the pressure of my hands, then you will do it. You will get there. So it's learning to focus on the right things that help you to move your body in the right direction. Example of work, if you focus on performance targets, you will never get there because stress builds, you get angry, you get all of these things that you don't want to. If you focus on, I'm very good at that, I know I can do it, and I know what I'm doing best here, and I'm excited about it, then you get there. So it's learning all of these things. They seem to be kind of like, it's like normal things here, but that's the most important thing at the end, So that's kind of like the center of the beginning here, that personal stuff. And you see, I'm getting into that because I really believe that this is the core of everything here. Then it's if you want to get into all the models here, that's my first book. That's called The Performance Triangle.
Yeah.
It has all the models described in it, with a lot of depth about management and no management. If you want to prepare an organization on the process here, on how to do that, it's called then that's the management design thing. Okay, management design helps to move through different stages in a structured way. What else do we have? If you want to get an expert in doing that, then that's what we call diagnostic mentoring. Diagnostic mentoring is the methodology we are using here. Okay, so that's the methodology that helps us to help organizations. So all our certified members here, they have gone through this thing here. It has a couple of pages, so it's not, but all of it. And so, there's different ways of getting into it, but it all leads to the same thing at the end here. Yeah.
Well, and this kind of brings us to a wrap up, but it seems to me that the key is the desire to grow, the desire to change, the desire to be better. That if you do not have that, then none of this will work. And
that's your theme here, if you don't want to make an impact here,
that's right,
it's very hard.
So it seems to me that one of the places this material really is needed is in how governments, particularly national governments, function in society today. They seem to be stuck in a legacy pattern that has trapped them into patterns of behavior and patterns of management, which are self-defeating ultimately. That's just my perception based on what you said today.
We have worked with a city in the US, okay, city government in the US on that stuff here. And I must say, it was one of the most rewarding projects here. Because at the end, you have the gardener, you have the policeman, you have the IT specialists, you have whatever you have in a city here. And they all kind of need to be friendly, you know, they all need to understand what they are here for, and they need to deliver services sometimes without people wanting them to believe here. So
yeah,
I wouldn't actually paint that kind of a pessimistic picture here. Most of the city governments, even I would call it even state governance and so on, they're pretty good at what they're doing here. They might not be totally state of the art up front. They might not be completely digital or whatever here, but it doesn't matter here. They function properly. They function when the storm is coming, and they're not falling apart here. So that part works.
They have to be accountable to their neighbors. I mean, the accountability at the local level is very different than at the federal level. So,
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah. It's the more decentralized things are, then the better they actually work locally here. So but we have entire industries that have a desperate need on getting bigger when it comes to management, and one of them is the entire health industry.
Yeah,
that's an industry that is just is governed by kings.
yes,
and that's never a very good thing here. Kings that have no clue about how to manage things, kings that believe management is something, administrators can do, and maybe that brings me to a closer here. I mean, I'm getting a bit unresty with everything we are writing around, and I'm feeling we are not making the impact as necessary. And maybe one of the next books needs to be unmanaged, simply that, unmanaged. Because what I'm seeing is in many organizations that organizations or things, events, instances are unmanaged. And
one of my
COVID crisis was a number one example. It's unmanaged.
Yeah, I wrote a short book about that called "All Crises Are Local."
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because that's where the effect is. But all crises are managed as global crises because that's where the leverage is.
Yeah.
One of my other guests on the Eddie Network podcasts, Celine Schillinger, who I think you probably know, she wrote a really, really fantastic book called "Dare to Unlead," and I liked it very much. So I think that on the grand scheme of things, we're at one of those transition points that you're describing. And that to me brings hope, because I think when you accept that you're going to go through transition, what you're saying is, I am willing to be different than I have been. And I want my company or my city or my family to be different than it's been. And we have to be open to asking the question, what does that mean? And you're providing a methodology or technology or however you want to frame that, but you're providing a way for people to do that. And I think it's fantastic. And I thank you for the hard work you've done to create this, because no one else is doing this in the way you're doing it. And I saw that 6 years ago in Vienna. I mean, when you described what you were doing, and I saw the performance triangle and the management design books. I bought both of those then, and And I said, this guy's got something going here. He's the next generation. Let me put it, you're the next generation of management thinkers, where I see myself as the next generation of leadership thinkers. And what we are creating, will stand the test of time, and it'll be talked about 30, 40, 50 years from now. I'm convinced of that.
I hope it's going faster here.
Well, but it will pick up momentum. And I'm seeing that with my work, that it's picking up momentum. There are people recognizing it, appreciating it for the first time. And it took going through something like the COVID pandemic to create the conflict, the crisis, the anxiety in people to say, I've got to look and see if there's something else out there. And I think that's what's beginning to transpire.
That's why I keep going back to the Drucker forum. Get my story across here as much as I can. I mean, that's what things that make sense here.
Is that next week or 2 weeks?
It's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks we're meeting back in Vienna for 15th Drucker forum here.
So I will make sure that our interview gets posted before the Drucker forum.
That's all fine. Thank you. We just had today, actually, we had our blog published at the Drucker forum here.
Oh, very good.
It's building resilience by going through the right way through those transitions. So it's actually a blog on the book here, but it's turned around the theme of building resilience here. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Lukas, thank you for being here. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
This has been great, and we'll put whatever you want in the show notes. But in particular, I think that free assessment link, I think we make sure we put that in there.
All fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for watching. I hope this has been beneficial to you. I assume you can find all your books on Amazon. Is that correct?
Should, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And as I always say, buy books. It'll be beneficial to you at some point in your life. So thank you again, Lukas. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
It was a pleasure.
Very good. Thank you. See you next time on the Eddie Network Podcast.